10 most ripped sword-and-sandal physiques. Do you remember the first time a bronze breastplate filled the screen and the theater went quiet? Before capes and CGI, the strongest men weren't pixels. They were real. From a dockworker named Maciste hauling chains under hot lamps to the post-war boom that turned Saturdays into marble and thunder, we grew up on bodies carved by discipline. Tonight, we're ranking the 10 most ripped sword-and-sandal physiques, men who made columns look flimsy and turned myth into muscle. Now, lock your guesses for number 1, number 2, and the sleeper pick in the comments. No edits after you watch. Number 10, Bartolomeo Pagano, Maciste, the silent era origin. A Genoa dockworker walked onto a set and made Herculean look small. Bartolomeo Pagano was spotted for his build. Thick chest, barrel shoulders, forearms like ship rope, and turned into Maciste for the 1914 epic Cabiria. Audiences didn't just watch, they believed. His body read real when there were no tricks to hide a soft midsection. The poses were simple. Shoulders squared, elbows locked, a clean press overhead, and that honesty sold tickets. He didn't have modern separation. He had workman density, the kind you earn hauling cargo at dawn. After Cabiria, producers built a whole Maciste cycle around that physique. Men argued biceps in barbershops. Kids clipped his photos. The idea that a body could carry a film started here. If the origin was a dockworker turned legend, the revival was a stand-in who stepped forward and kept the lights on. Next, the man billed as Allan Steel, who began in someone else's shadow and flexed his way to the front. Number 9. Allan Steel, Sergio Ciani, the stand-in who stole the spotlight. Sergio Ciani took the name Allan Steel and the first earned his wages as Steve Reeves's body double, slightly shorter, so he trained harder. He learned to look larger by how he stood, chest high, lats out, elbows set. The camera loves clean geometry. He gave it angles it could read from the back row. Once he stepped out of Reeves's shadow, you saw a physique that read ready. Rounded delts, crisp triceps, a midsection that stayed tight when the work got rough. He favored test of strength moments where the light skated across every groove. The overhead lift, the steady chain break. Unlike some exports who lived between takes on posing, Steel kept a rhythm you can spot on film. Push, press power, and honest rouse. There's a charm to him that aged well. He never looked carved by vanity. He looked built to do a job. Soon he wasn't standing in for anyone. His name went to the center of the poster. If a body double can seize a spotlight, a muscle beach Adonis can bring Hollywood gloss to an ancient hero. Next, Ed Fury, Ursus with a beach bread shine. Number 8, Ed Fury, the muscle beach, Adonis who became Ursus. Ed Fury arrived with a West Coast Polish. Clean lines, bright shoulders, a chest like a shield and a waist that kept everything sharp. California carved him before Italy crowned him. When the peplum boom called, he didn't need to pretend. He already looked like the statue everyone else chased. What made him pop was athletic neatness. Where some stars moved like monuments, Fury moved like a swimmer, shoulders gliding, arms set, midsection firm even when the camera lingered. In the Ursus films, he carried weight the old way. Pick it up, set it down, no grimace needed. The reveal wasn't a single shot. It was a rhythm. Climb a step, brace a gait, pivot for a strike, never a sag in the frame. He had Hollywood miles before Rome. One musical number, one mistimed kick, and a splash that cost him a job. He spoke up and stood his ground. Italy gave him the lead instead of the line, and he paid it back with a body that stayed photo-ready through long shoots. For those of us who caught these on Sunday TV, he's the memory of suntan lotion and jingles. The moment you realized the camera doesn't need trickery when a man stands up straight. If Polish can be power, then showmanship can be armor. Next, Mickey Hargitay, Mr. Universe with a love story, headlines, and a Hercules build that didn't blink. Number 7. Mickey Hargitay, Mr. Universe, tabloid Hercules. Muscle can start a headline. Mickey Hargitay wrote them in thick strokes. He came from Hungary with a gymnast control and a blacksmith's forearms, won Mr. Universe, and turned that medal into a ticket to America's loudest rooms. Mae West saw the stage presence and put him under bright lights. Under them, you saw it. Capped delts, high chest, a midsection that stayed tight off pose. Then came Jane Mansfield, and the love story the magazines couldn't quit. When Italy called with The Loves of Hercules, Mickey looked born to lift a portcullis with one arm and his co-star with the other. On screen he stayed cool. Chain breaks. Statues moved like furniture. What stuck wasn't just mass, it was finish. Angles that let light do half the work. Definition that didn't vanish between takes. Some men were big. He was presented. Life hit hard later. He did the tougher kind of lifting at home, raising kids in quieter rooms. The frame remained dignified, and so did the man. If showmanship can be armor, he wore it well. If number 7 polished strength to a shine, number 6 turned grit into credibility. Next, Gordon Mitchell, the POW survivor who traded a classroom and a war story for an arena and a legend. Number 6, Gordon Mitchell, the POW who turned grit into a gladiator. Some bodies are built in gyms, others are forged by weather and war. Gordon Mitchell carried both. He served in World War II, survived as a prisoner, taught high school for a spell, then drifted to California just as Muscle Beach was turning iron into a spectator sport. Mae West plucked him for stage timing. The Italians hired him for presence. He landed in Rome with old army posture in his spine and went straight to work. Atlas against the Cyclops, fury of the pagans. He wasn't the prettiest physique, he was the most convincing. You believed the gate would lift. On camera, he read lean and dangerous. That dry, sinewy cut that holds up under unforgiving sunlight. Off camera, he trained like a man who never wanted to be caught unprepared, lifting stones when dumbbells were scarce, doing more of his own stunts than the insurance men preferred. The career stretched when the tide receded. Mitchell pivoted into commanders, villains, men with hard choices. He had something the genre rarely rewarded. Durability. The frame held. The face told stories. If grit had circumference, he'd need a custom tape. If number 6 is endurance, number 5 is the curveball. Power stepping off the chariot to chase a different stage. Next, Mark Forrest, the Hercules who chose arias over arenas. Number 5, Mark Forrest, the Hercules who chose arias over arenas. Every era has one man poured into the job. For the early 60s, it was Mark Forrest, broad across the beam, waist tight as a belt, arms that finished a pose like a period on a sentence. On screen, he carried boulders like boxes and snapped restraints as if they'd offended him. What separated Forrest wasn't just mass, it was method. He trained like a competitor, presses strict, rows deep, legs paid in full, and you saw the discipline in how he stood. In the Goliath and Son of Samson pictures, the in-between moments sold the physique. Shoulders set when he turned to listen, forearm chords lighting up as he moved a curtain or a gate. He read, prepared, the athlete who did the work when no one watched. Then came the left turn, few predicted. With posters getting bigger and paychecks fat, Forrest stepped off the chariot and into a rehearsal room. He'd been taking voice lessons between shoots and chose to pursue opera. The same discipline that built the shoulders trained the breath. He left the clatter for scales and Italian vowels, studied, sang, taught. Quiet mastery instead of noise. If muscle can open a door and music can close it gently, he did both. If number 5 is strength walking toward silence, number 4 is the jolt. Power that burned white hot, then flickered in a way none of us wanted. Next, Dan Vadis. Raw force, fast rise, and a finish that still stings. Number 4, Dan Vadis. Raw power with a flame at both ends. Some men look built to break chains. Dan Vadis looked like he might break the pillar holding the chain. Broad back, arms like mooring lines. He carried a brawler's hardness you can't fake. Greek roots. Shanghai birth. U.S. Navy. A stint in Mae West's Muscle Man act for timing and stage sense. Then Italy, where producers needed thunder. He read different from the classical statues, where some looked chiseled. Vadis looked forged, dense shoulders, thick forearms, a chest too large to require flattering angles. The fights had snap, the strength tests. Yokes, chains, overturned wagons, felt like he could have done them twice if you'd asked. He headlined fast. Colossus of the arena, the triumph of Hercules. As peplum cooled, he shifted gears and slipped into Clint Eastwood's orbit. As rugged heavies and barroom bruisers, it looked like he'd outsmarted the typecasting. Then came the news no one wanted. Years later, far from the arena crowds, he was gone at 49 after a bad mix. We remember the strength first. We always will. If number 4 was the hard charge that burned bright, number 3 is the bridge, an athlete who wore 2 legends and made both believable. Next, Gordon Scott, Tarzan's shoulders, Roman steel, and a career that crossed continents. Number 3, Gordon Scott, Tarzan's shoulders, Rome's steel. If a jungle yell could hush a row, you know the first part of Gordon Scott's myth. He entered Tarzan with a frame that didn't need explaining. Tall, thick through the back, arms like bridge cables, and moved like a man who trusted his feet. The same capability carried him across the Atlantic when the vine gave way to the javelin. Italy needed men who could wear a tunic without the tunic wearing them. What set him apart was athletic calm. He didn't overpose. He stood square, turned his hips, and let the shoulders tell the story. In Roman epics and strongman adventures, his best shots weren't the big flexes but the half moments. Reaching for a shield, bracing a door, where the arm lights up in clean relief and the chest holds the frame like a beam. He trained for work, not a pageant. No carnival bulking, no water trick thinness. Just hard lifts, road work, posture. When the peplum tide turned, he followed the work into rougher parts and let the face do more talking than the arms. He bridged 2 myths without blinking and proved size is only half the truth. How a man carries it is the rest. If number 3 is the calm in the storm, number 2 is the thunderhead, a championship mountain of muscle who didn't just play a hero, he built one for the next generation. Next, Reg Park, the powerhouse who forged a protege. Number 2, Reg Park, the powerhouse who forged a protege. Some physiques impress. Some feel inevitable. Reg Park walked on screen like a verdict. Broad through the clavicles, chest stacked like masonry, arms that made short sleeves surrender. He carried mass with poise. Long before supplement aisles, Park trained like a builder. Heavy presses, honest rows, legs paid in full. The legend followed him. Not just that he looked strong, but that he was strong. Famously credited with a 500-pound bench in an era still arguing about form. On film, the Hercules features gave him the perfect architecture. In the horror-tinted catacombs of Hercules in the Haunted World, and the grandeur of Hercules conquers Atlantis, he moved like a man, for whom stone weighed less than duty. He had readable symmetry that holds when the lens backs away. Delts like coins. A pec shelf that knows where the light sits. He stayed legible at every distance. What saved him from statuehood was purpose. He'd brace a door with the flat of his hand, and you believed the hinge feared him. And then there's the legacy that leaps off screen. A teenager in Austria saw Park as Hercules and felt a switch flip. Years later, that kid, Arnold, would meet his poster, train alongside him, and carry the torch further than anyone imagined. Park didn't just headline a wave, he mentored the tide that followed. Between films, he ran gyms and preached the uncomplicated gospel of hard lifts and patience. If Park made myth plausible, our final name drew the pattern everyone chased. Next, Steve Reeves, the template. Number 1, Steve Reeves, the template. Everyone tried to trace. There are bodies you admire and bodies you measure by. Steve Reeves was the yardstick. He walked into frame and made marble look like a suggestion. Broad through the chest, shoulders set like architecture, waist pulled to a point. Every line carried the old Greek promise that form and function could be the same thing. When Hercules hit in 58, those of us with rabbit-eared TVs saw something new. Not a circus act, but a living statue that moved with quiet certainty. Reeves trained for classical results. Clean presses, steady rows, legs that kept the carriage honest, posture drilled until it lived in the bones. On camera, the light did half the labor. It found the clavicles, lived on the delts, skimmed the ridge where pec meets shoulder, then slid to a waist that never betrayed the line. He prepared when no one watched, so he could underplay when everyone did. The myth wasn't just angles, it was choices. He insisted on doing real work, and the bill came due. One bad chariot stunt, a shoulder that never quite forgave him. He bowed out before the genre did, which is why our memory keeps him forever in his prime. And he wore the tunic like a uniform, not a novelty. Between shoots, he lived the message he sold. Simple food, fresh air, a rancher's schedule, like a man who knew a body is a promise you keep daily. He didn't just headline a wave, he taught the camera how to see it, and the audience how to believe it. Some men don't merely play heroes, they reset the scale for what a hero can look like. For those of us who grew up on Saturday matinees, these men weren't effects. They were evidence of hours nobody saw and discipline that didn't need applause. The lines were clean, the stakes simple. A man picked up something heavy and the room leaned forward. If we missed your champion, make the case and tell us which shot proves it. If you'd reshuffle the top 3, say how and why. If this trip back made you sit a little straighter, that's the old training talking. If this is the best list you've seen today, hit like, tap subscribe, ring the bell, and press hype. Thank you for the support.